Welcome back to my channel. My name is Adrienne and today we are discussing the books that I want to read in October. October is one of my favorite months of the year. It has my birthday, it has Halloween, the weather finally cools off, so I'm very excited for October. I plan on reading lots of scary books, like almost exclusively scary or thriller books, hopefully. And I kind of hope I have nightmares, or at least better nightmares than usual, because normally my nightmares are either I'm in a car and the brakes won't work, or I'm going to school and I haven't been there in so long that I can't remember where my classes are. And it's so boring. Like, though I keep having those nightmares over and over again. Like, I want to have a nightmare where there's a ghost chasing me or something. Hopefully these will do the trick. First off, the most ambitious book this month, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This is a tome. It's a textbook. It's the longest, most obnoxious book that I've ever seen. But I want to be part of the cool kids club. This book is so cool looking. I want to have read it. I want to be able to talk about it. There's a whole cult following. I just want to know, like, what happens in here? What's so crazy and scary and amazing that it's worth reading this giant book? So, biggest goal this month. Next, I'm going to be reading this throughout the month. This is Sycorax's Daughters, which this is an anthology of a whole bunch of scary stories. This is over 500 pages long. It's all by Black women writers, and I want to read all these scary short stories. I mean, look at this cover. Terrifying. Next is The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. This one follows a woman whose relative owns the Ashburn house. The house has been rumored to be haunted for so long, and the woman who owns it won't let anyone inside. She doesn't talk to people, and one day she dies and it's inherited by her only surviving relative, whose name is Adrienne, which I'm very excited to read. My namesake in a book. But she moves into the house when she inherits it. Spooky stuff starts happening. I think it's like a real ghost haunting, which, like, that's what's actually scary to me. Ghost hauntings, things you can't see being scary, like, that is much scarier to me than a real life serial killer, axe murderer, which obviously makes no sense. But for some reason, ghosts are just so scary to me. Next up, Bad Things by Michael Marshall. His other pen name is Michael Rutger, and he wrote The Anomaly, which I loved when I read it a couple years ago. It was very scary, so I wanted to pick up another book by him. This one, Bad Things, is about a man whose son, I think who was just a toddler, inexplicably died suddenly. And it ruins this man's life. He's just depressed and having a bad time, and years later he receives an email that says, I know what happened, and some bad things happened, and I think it's going to be scary, hopefully. Next up, The Changeling by Victor LaValle. I just read The Ballad of Black Tom by this author and loved it so much, so I can't wait to read this one, which is about a man who's having strange dreams, and his father died, and then his wife commits some horrific act and disappears. And I think it's supposed to be like a dark fairy tale of sorts. I honestly don't. I have no idea. It sounds scary though. Next up is Unbury Carol by Josh Malerman, obviously the author of Bird Box, which I read and thought was very scary. But this one follows a woman named Carol who sometimes dies, but really she's slipping into a coma for a few days. And only a couple people know that she has this affliction where she slips into a coma and isn't really dead. But I guess those people aren't around whenever she slips into a coma and she gets buried alive. And the people who are aware of her condition find out and come and try to save her. Meanwhile, she's literally trying to dig herself up from the grave. So I'm not sure if it's actually going to be scary, like Bird Box scary, or if it's just the being buried alive part that's scary, which sounds awful, obviously, so we'll see. Next up is The Supernatural Enhancements by Edgar Quintero. What a beautiful book cover. This one is about, is it one man or a group of people who inherit a scary haunted house again? Axton House in Point Bless, Virginia. I think there's a ghosts and secrets and just more scary stuff. I actually bought this one, gosh, it had to be 8 years ago from a used bookstore, and I didn't notice until I brought it home that the book smelled like smoke, which is disgusting. And I left it under the couch at my last house for literally years for the smell to go away. And then there's always been like this negative tie in my head to the book, like that it's gross, but I think the smoke smell is finally gone. So now 8 years later I can read it. Next up, There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This is the young adult book, slasher, whatever, which I don't really think I'm interested in, but as you can see from the state of my shelves, I just got rid of a bunch of books. I'm currently working on a series on this channel about bringing down my physical TBR to a more reasonable number. And this is a book that I've had on my shelves for years, and whenever I see it I think, oh, I'm gonna read that at Halloween time, but then I never read it, and then by November it's like, well, I can't read it till October. But my deal with myself at this point is if I don't read it this October, I'm just gonna get rid of it because it's ridiculous to keep holding on to it with such a short window to read it in. And hopefully I'll at least try it, and then if I think it's stupid, I'll just get rid of it. But if you're interested in hearing more about my TBR and the obnoxious amount of books that I own that I haven't read, go check those videos out. And then next, if I want to switch up the genre more for my scary books, I have 172 Hours on the Moon by Johann Harstad. This one is scary but in space. And I think someone gets stranded in space or something like that. Actually, this is another weird book because, again, at my old house, I had bookshelves that met in a corner. I had books stacked on the top shelf, and one day this and a Brandon Sanderson book fell down in the corner, and they laid there for years before they were recovered, like literally years. And it was laying like this, crunched up, and it actually has fully recovered from that. So very impressive. But another book that has just been held onto for so long because it was actually inaccessible. But I'll read this one for a little genre switch up. And then finally is a reread, The Disappearances by Emily Bain Murphy. This one I don't have to read in October. It's more like a lighter option if, say, I start getting traumatized by the books that I'm reading and need a lighter read for a bit. I read this a few years ago and loved it so much. And I remember I read it during booktube-a-thon, and one of the reading prompts was to take a picture of your TBR or your current read, and I took like a picture holding a mirror, which was fun. But this is about a girl who has to move to this small town where her mom is from. It's a weird little town where you can't see your reflection. I can't remember what else. I just remember this book was so autumnal and atmospheric and just a great little town that I wanted to hang out in. And it has like mysteries going on of the town and the people. I just really want to revisit this because I loved it so much the first time that I read it. So okay, that is all. Those are my October plans. Yeah, I'm gonna have a horrifying October hopefully, and I can't wait. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.